Good morning. Dear students, today we are going to see nationalism. Nationalism in Europe we are going to discuss. You know that history makes men wise. That is why history is always appreciated. The rise of nationalism in Europe. You see, the patriotic feeling or the feeling of the people, one in with the nation, is called a nationalism. In the last class, we have seen the nationalism of India, how various movements, great leaders worked for it, and finally India was able to get independence because of the nationalism. In the same way, the nationalism in Europe was not an ordinary affair. Lot of struggles, lot of misunderstandings, working of great people, great leaders, everything accounted for nationalism in Europe. And we will see the rise of nationalism in Europe under three categories. First, let us discuss what is nationalism and how European society was there, and unification of Italy and Germany. See, nationalism is a feeling of belonging and loyalty that causes people to think of themselves as a nation. The people should think themselves as a nation. It is my country, it is my state. The feeling of unification of all the hearts of all people towards one objective, that objective is the nation. That is called a nationalism. It is more or less a unifying spirit. And during 19th and 20th centuries, nationalism was a powerful force. Please remember, nationalism was a powerful force. And it helped to create one nation from many separate countries. We also know that in ancient India, there were 56 countries. During the period of Mahabharata and Ramayana, people say there were 56 countries. And today we are one India. That is the spirit of nationalism. And break one nation up into many countries like Austria and Hungary and Turkey. So, this is the European society. The European society is divided into two classes. That is always there. Upper strata and the lower strata. The upper class people consist of landlords. Landlords occupied the upper strata. They owned many acres of land on their name, and they exploited the peasants. So they formed one class that is called the upper class, and the another one is the lower class, and majority of the people naturally invariably belong to this lower class. They were peasants, they were landless and worked as a small landless laborers. So the European society is made up of two parts, upper strata and the lower strata. The upper strata, landlords who possessed many acres of land, and lower strata, they are landless laborers. And you see how the upper class people and the lower class people are appearing. They look aristocratic, they look royal, they look very fantastic, whereas they are having their ordinary living with vegetables and what is available to them. And the leaders of revolutions. Revolution is a revolt. Revolution is a riot. Revolution is a people's uprising that you call. And they are the greatest leaders of revolution who accounted for the unification of European countries. And one, the famous names, Otto von Bismarck and Mussolini and General Garibaldi. These three great leaders account for the great revolution of Europe, and by virtue of the selfless sacrifice, the Europe is known today as one. And we all know the greatness of Napoleon Bonaparte. And I would like to transfer with you a small piece of incident that has happened in the life of Napoleon Bonaparte. You see, when French army was camping in a village, the French army was camping in a village. The soldiers were playing cards, they were dancing, they were singing, etc. The village girls were going to fetch water. At that time, there was a young soldier was reading a book. The village girls mocked at him, while all other soldiers are enjoying. You are just reading. After 3 or 4 years, the French camp had the French army of soldiers came there. At the same time, the same village girls have been going to fetch water. The lieutenants came out and called the ladies. Dear ladies, come here. Do you know that there was one lad who was studying a book? You know? Yes. Some 3-4 years ago, when French army was camping here, while other soldiers were enjoying by playing or dancing or singing, he was reading a book. You see, my dear village girls, I am that lad. On the day I was studying books, now I become the leader of the entire army. I am the lieutenant, I am the Napoleon. So my dear student, this is the secret of success of any great leader. All great leaders are great readers. So you must remember, only by reading you can achieve something extraordinary. So Napoleon was a beautiful example for that. And he made so many reforms. So Napoleon is not only a warrior but a great reformer. And the French Revolution started in the year 1789. They will ask a question, when did the French Revolution start? You will have to say in the year 1789, that is in the 18th century. France was a full-fledged territorial state under the rule of a monarch. Political and constitutional changes that came in the wake of French Revolution, because at the end of every revolution, there will be radical changes. You can find in all the revolutions, we can find radical changes in administration as well as in the reforms, everything extra. It also powered revolution in all Europe. The French Revolution was a torch bearer for all other revolutions in Europe. So France plays a dominant role in shaping Europe, because it was a forerunner. It was the torch bearer. The French Revolution inspired courage, self-confidence, motivation among all other nations that finally resulted in making a great nationalism. And the idea of nationalism, these are all French words, the fatherland, the citizen, the French tricolor, hymns and words, these are all the symbols. Uniform system of weights and measurements, use of Persian French, imaginary female characters were used to show united nation such as Germania. You see, one popular lady, or we can call her as lass, Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc inspired, she was only a shepherd girl, and she brought the greatest changes in the mind of the people. So the women characters, all the women characters were used as symbols. Even in India, the greatest characters were women characters. For example, Rama was inspired by the abduction of Sita, and Sita was an inspiring force. So also in Mahabharata, Draupadi, that is Panchali, inspired the Pandavas, and so the establishment of Dharma and Dharmic rule. So, always in every part of the world, the female characters play a very predominant role in inspiring men. And the Italian states, before unification, that is 1858. 1858, my dear students, you must remember, just 1 year before 1858, that is in the year 1857, the first Sepoy mutiny in India has happened. So 1 year after Indian Sepoy mutiny, the Italian states, you see how they are going to have a metamorphical change. So, for every nationalism, there are great barriers. The idea of nationalism cannot be achieved all of a sudden. As far as India is concerned, when Mahatma Gandhi was on salt satyagraha, only less than 30 people accompanied him. So the spirit of nationalism is lacking there. But once he reached the sea, hundreds and thousands of people followed him. So it needs some force, it needs some time, because of the presence of obstacles, because of the presence of some impediments, which we call as barriers. So what are the barriers? One is Italy was divided into several states. And point number two, it did not threaten the balance of power in Europe. So if it has got some impact upon the Europe, the revolution would have caught forth very early. After the Congress of Vienna, Italy was made up of 9 different states, which are given below. And the prophet of Italian unification, he is the prophet, a person who carried a great vision, a visionary leader, that is Mazzani. He was a member of the Carburani. The Carburani were a secret group which used to violence to obtain what he wanted. So he was a member of some guerrilla group. He was a member of a revolutionary group, and he formed Young Italy. He formed Young Italy. Usually in all revolutions we can find that youngsters play a predominant role. In India, Bhagat Singh, and in Tamil Nadu it was Tirupur Kumaran, etc. And another man is the sword of Italian unification is Garibaldi. Garibaldi thought that only power and sword could help to overcome everything. So power and absolute power are the key words of Garibaldi, and he had a great army of youngsters. My dear students, I would like to tell you that once Garibaldi says, Garibaldi was standing in front of the army and he was addressing the army, and he said that we are going to take part in an important war. That war you will have to sacrifice. Those who are willing to sacrifice, you please march one step ahead. I am going to close my eyes. And after 1 minute he opened his eyes. The army remained in the same position. He was upset, terribly upset. He said that I want that you will have to move one step forward. But the sub-lieutenant, the deputy said, respected sir, I would like to say that everyone marched one step ahead. So the army looks as if it is in the same position. So such was the army Garibaldi had. And this person, Victor Emmanuel, played a very major role, and he was the king of Italy. Italy was divided into 7 states by Italian dynasty. Ideas of Italian unification first given by Mazzani through the secret society called Young Italy, that we have already seen. But his revolutions have failed. Lead was taken by Sardinia, Victor Emmanuel, whose photo we have just seen. Alliance with France to defeat Austria and unify it with the northern territories. So you see, alliance always works. Whenever we feel weak, and whenever we feel we need support, we'll have to enter into alliance, and this is a routine of all kingdoms. They used to have alliance with the people who had trust in them. That is happening even in democracy. In democracy, we can find that even great parties, major parties, are having alliance with the small groups so as to establish themselves. So they had an alliance. There's a process of unification as completed with the crowning of Victor Emmanuel II as a king of Italy in 1861. That is in 3 years from 1858. The unified Italy, it is always there. Whenever a new nation is formed, so whenever two groups get together, there are always problems of misunderstanding, miscommunication, and the change is always will not be accepted by the peoples. You see, who played a main role, and the right to vote is limited to upper and middle class. This has disturbed the ordinary classes and the Catholics. The Catholics refused to participate in a new nation because it was opposed by their leader, that is the Pope. And bribery and corruption were frequent in poor, uneducated lower classes. So the corruption has been happening from the days of Jesus Christ, and it is taken a greater roots much in the society. That Italy should become a world power and fight for colonies. And Italy lacked industrial development, agricultural, natural resources, prices were very high, people could not afford manufactured goods. This naturally happens. Whenever a nation is newly formed, whenever a nation is very poor, it cannot take care of its resources, nor the people have enough money or power to purchase whatever they want. So this causes a great misunderstanding, frustration, disappointment, and all these things will lead to great problems for a united Italy. And at the same time, some liberal revolution is going on in Germany. Germany was one of the powerful nations during First World War and in the Second World War. Event of 1848 in France, liberal revolution consisting of middle educated professionals and merchants set up a German nationalism. You see the difference between both the revolutions. Whereas in Italy or in France, the society is divided into two. One is upper class and another one is lower class. Here, the lead was taken by the middle class people, middle educated professionals. They have taken the lead, and King Frederick Wilhelm IV of Prussia rejected their offer. The lower peasant class too protested at the lack of representation. This led to the weakening of the liberal movement and the disbanding of the assembly. Liberal movement got defeated because it lacked support from all corners. And Germany before unification, 1866 to 1871. You see, have a look. Barriers to German unification, just like the barriers to Italian unification, here also we come across such kind of problems in the unification of Germany. France preferred 39 weak states to one nation. Austria knew Prussia was most powerful state. Rulers of small states feared loss of power. In united Germany, Protestant Catholic hostility from 30 years war, economic differences between Western industrial states and agricultural Eastern states. In addition to all these causes, the economic differences played a very vital role because Western districts are industrially strong and the Eastern states are strong in agriculture. So they naturally rich and they are fighting to earn the livelihood. Frankfurt Assembly, you see how the Frankfurt Assembly of the yesteryears. Have a look at and enjoy the beauty of the picturization. And Germany, the great leaders of German King Wilhelm, King of Russia, succeeded Frederick William to the throne in 1861. He was supported by wealthy classes, strongly conservative and opposed to liberal ideas. So he has got the support of landowning classes. He has got the support of aristocrats. He got the support of upper classes. And Wilhelm wanted to increase the size and strength of the military. So only by having a strong military, you can dictate the terms to your opponents. And that is why even now you can find that of late India has been purchasing a lot of arms and ammunition from different countries, like purchase of Rafale planes and purchase of arms and ammunition from Russia. All these things definitely show that only by military power you can dictate terms. By virtue of having a large military, you need not threaten other countries. But to defend ourselves, we need a strong military supported by very good arms and ammunitions. And he decided to pick a new Prime Minister in order to get what he wanted. Because the earlier Prime Minister is against all his opinions. So he wanted to have a man. He wanted to have his own man as a Prime Minister so that he can get things done as he pleases. See, Bismarck, the greatest figure, everyone be knowing about Otto von Bismarck, tallest leaders of German. You see, not by speeches and the solutions of majorities or the great questions of the time decided upon, but by blood and iron. He was a man of blood and iron. Blood and iron, that means sacrifice, and by iron will, strong will, courage of conviction, only we can get things done. We can get whatever we want. Unification of Germany in May 1848, the liberal attempt to set up a constitutional monarchy at Frankfurt was suppressed. But all these things went on. The process was completed with the crowning of Kaiser William as of Germany. Everything came to an end. In the Balkans, the Ottoman Empire was a dominant Muslim. One is a dominant Muslim, and the western part is by the romantic and nationalistic feeling, and they based their claims on distinct national identities and historical reference to the earlier state of independence. As the Ottoman Empire weakened, the various nations broke free. Once, when a nation breaks free, so many countries will decide their future. Some 20 years back, that is some 2 decades ago, we find that when Russia was broken, so many small states separated. You see, ethnography. How next? And so, my dear students, we have seen that France, Italy and Germany, these 3 countries, by virtue of the spirit of nationalism, 3 great nations of Europe. That is, first France. The French Revolution, the French people has given an inspiration to form new nationalistic spirits in Italy and Germany. So first French, Napoleon Bonaparte, followed by Italy, and then Germany, Otto von Bismarck. And this is possible by the inspiring leadership of leaders like Napoleon Bonaparte, Mazzini, Bismarck, etc. And adding to that, Garibaldi as one more tall leader who has contributed to the nationalism, and they created a spirit of patriotism among people, and people found that themselves as a nation. What is nation? It is as. What is we are? We are the nations. So This spirit has made powerful nations. Thank you.